Welcome, and thanks for tuning in. If you've been tired of hearing success stories, locked away in boardrooms, bestsellers, penthouse suites, buckle up because I'm throwing the doors open and pulling up a chair for us to eavesdrop on the real journeys of people that I've met, worked with, or been inspired by in this journey we call life. From health and fitness experts to business leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and even the person next door. My goal is to bring you unfiltered conversations with the people who've defied expectations or pushed back on their so-called predetermined path to build something great for themselves and for others. We're peeling back the layers on how they overcome doubts, navigate setbacks, and turn their challenges into opportunities. Each episode is a trove of unconventional wisdom, practical tips, raw inspiration. It's your backstage pass to the secrets of success. No VIP access required. Let's dive right in.
So hello all and welcome to episode 11. I have a very special guest here, Graciano Rubio, who is a certified financial planner. He's the founder and CEO of Infinity Financial Planning in California. And he's also the co-owner of a CrossFit Valley View in California with his wife and a 105K strongman. I was very fortunate trying to go to different fitness events. And I had attended in January in Texas. And he was at the CrossFit Health Summit and I saw him speak and I was just completely wowed. And you will be wowed too when you go on and you see some of his lifts. But one of the things I really appreciated was his mindset on health, on business, on finances, all of those things being a holistic approach. So welcome, Graciano.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
So if you could just give me just a little bit of background of like who you are and what's important to you. I know you have some pillars right behind you that are super important too. So you don't mind starting there.
Yeah, So I'm an investment advisor. I own a gym. I'm a husband. I'm a father. And when my time's not tied up with those things, I guess you could say I'm an athlete. And that kind of forms the basis of what I do day to day. Is help people get a little wealthier, get a little healthier, and then spend time within my family and the community a little more broadly.
I love that. And you are also involved heavily in the community, like not just the CrossFit box.
As time allows, there's probably a little bit of political activity. That's probably the bulk of the community involvement. Everything else is just not that I don't want to, but those other things take up too much time to spend more time in the community.
Okay, cool. Well, if you could just give me would love to start with the story of you and how Dave Castro kind of called you out on with one of your lifts, which was Isabel, I believe, and was absolutely insane.
It was Dave had been trying to come to our gym for a number of years. And normally when he goes places, he'll drop in at a local gym. And we're close to some really good duck hunting.
Oh, cool.
And we're a little less than an hour and a half away. So he goes duck hunting probably 20 minutes from us.
Oh my gosh.
But duck season is always around the holidays. So for years, he would come in and try to do a drop-in the worst day of the year. So he'd come in, it'd be like Christmas Eve one year. Another would be Friday before New Year's Eve or something.
Oh my gosh.
So he'd always come in during the times we a really limited schedule.
Yeah.
And so I know he had came in multiple times and no one's at the gym.
That's hysterical.
And so he came in this time and it was off hours. It's like 2 p.m. or so. Yeah. And so he stopped in. We talked about the gym a little bit and he put up just a post highlighting the gym that he dropped in at. And we talked a little bit. I think he was on his way back home. And then he had kind of stumbled onto my Instagram. And I think that 1 or 2 days prior, I had put up a workout with Isabel, but it was at a much heavier weight.
What was the weight?
So I posted that up. So he decided to make a challenge, which was if anyone could do it under 20 minutes. And when I first put the video up, that workout started because we had a little bit of a after Christmas party. I think it was after Christmas. So on Monday when I did the workout, I was definitely not at my best. I was still hungover.
Oh my God.
That was not my best performance. I looked at it and I said, well, I can probably do it in 20.
Oh, that's insane. That's
And
insane.
it took a bit of time, but eventually I got it, posted it, and no, I don't think anyone else tried. But I think he put it up as a little bit of a joke, thinking like, yeah, no one's gonna do this in under 20 minutes. But when I saw it, I thought, well, I know I can because I could have went faster than that. So it's within striking distance.
So even if you weren't at your best when you did it, you knew that 100% I could do it.
No, I think he probably thought that was like an all-time level of effort, which it was. I mean, it's not the first one I did. It's not that it was easy. It wasn't that like peak moment of that's everything you got.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. That's amazing. And he was giving out like an assault bike or something for it. Is that what it was?
Yeah, the assault bike is weird. I haven't brought it in. I haven't got my assault bike yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No,
That's hysterical. That's too
I
funny.
think not very long afterwards is when Dave was removed from HQ.
Oh,
And so I completed it, and then a short time afterward, he was gone,
oh.
and I just never followed up with that. So I didn't want to send anybody an email and say, hey, so what about that assault? You guys sending that sometime? It was kind of like, I'm just gonna let this one.
That's great. You're like, I have enough assault bikes in my gym.
Yeah, and then when he came back, I was like, I'm not gonna bug him about the assault. He's got other stuff to worry about.
That is so funny. That's such a great story. Yeah, yeah. If anyone goes and sees some of your lifts, that was one of the ones I saw just a couple days ago, and it was like finishing that insane weight and then leg up, and I'm like, on one leg? That's crazy. I love it. So Graziano, can you tell me a little bit about just your approach? Actually, I want to know a little bit about just your background because I feel like that whole like strongman thing that must have been part of your life for a very long time. Just to start. And if you want to elaborate on the health, wealth mindset approach after that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, the fitness. I would say the fitness was a big part of it. The strongman portion wasn't. And this kind of goes a little bit into, where I think CrossFit fits in for a lot of people is that CrossFit's supposed to be the base. That's supposed to be the foundation. And so I had started working out, I think I was 12. And so I had asked my parents, asked them for a gym membership for my 12th birthday. And I said, I don't want anything else. That's the only present that I want. And then
Well,
I would bug people to get me a ride or to take me there. And so for the first probably 2 years, all I did was go in and just totally screw around. And that was it. Just screw around, do whatever's there, no rhyme or reason to anything. And I think it was really important to do that. And a lot of that is missing today. Just going in, being terrible, doing whatever you feel like. And then when I turned 14, I never missed a workout after that. And at 14, I was starting to go into high school.
yeah.
And so I started lifting weights for football, like most teenagers do. But that was when I convinced my mom to let me start riding the city bus. And so I didn't have to rely on anyone else to get me. And so I could just ride the bus to get to the gym.
Oh, wow.
And I would either work out at school or I'd ride the bus to the gym. And so since it was all on me, now I can go whenever I want.
That's awesome.
So it was probably another 6 years of actually training. And at 14 is when that's when I first started taking it serious. Because before it was just go in and do whatever. But now since, I can have a schedule, I can have a routine, that's where I really started diving into how are these guys doing it? How are they training? What do I need to be doing?
That's amazing. And
And
can I
then
ask what inspired you at 12 years old to ask for a gym membership when I know most kids that age are not asking for that? What was the inspiration behind that?
I just grew up as that's just part of the culture. I come from a very blue collar family. So the physical ability is a point of emphasis. And growing up with pro wrestling, World's Strongest Man reruns, all of those things, you have this little bit of a drive, an inspiration to be like.
That's cool.
And so by the time I was 12, it was okay. Well, if you want to be like that, you go to the gym and you work out. And that was it. That was as complicated as it was. Just I want to be like those guys.
Super cool.
There was no real reason for it outside of just giving it a shot and testing it out.
Wow. That's wild. And then after that, like what gave you more structure? Like how did that kind of, I mean, since you started at 12, like that makes a lot of sense that you figured it out and you've probably adapted and changed your training methodology. I know you have like a bit of your own and how you do things, which is pretty cool. If you don't mind sharing a little bit of that too.
Yeah, I think I've never really strayed away from how I trained at 14. And this is really basic physiology. It's something that CrossFit pushes. It's something that a lot of top people push, which is you get stronger or you get fitter when you do things that are beyond what you're currently adapted to. CrossFit calls it relative intensity. And so when people throw the word intensity, it's difficult for them to comprehend, but intensity is just how hard is that for what your current abilities are. So at 14, you have the idea like, well, if I just add 1 pound to the bar or I do one more rep than I did before, you're going to get stronger or you're going to get better. That simple premise, as you become better, it starts getting a little more complicated just because in order to be able to do that, you can't do it every workout. You can't do it multiple times a week. And so it gets a little more complicated, but it doesn't ever stray from that basic premise. Well, I'm going to have to do something when a workout might take you a week to recover from versus 6 hours, like when you first started. There's a little more planning to it. There's a little more thought, but you still have to satisfy that basic condition.
Interesting. So it's the intensity of moving past the adaptation every time you're in the gym in
some capacity. And so a lot of people they will switch up exercises, they will add more stuff in, they'll do tons and tons of things to get away from that basic idea that I'm going to have to do something just harder. And so people have these crazy complicated plans that they're going to do. And I don't think they normally measure up to something simpler, because if usually the reason for all of that extra stuff is that I don't want to have to just look at the bar, know how much it sucked last time, and do one more. So if last time you did 5, this time you're looking at it, instead of just saying, I'm going to do 6 reps, I'm going to will myself to it. You start coming up with all these ideas and start bargaining with yourself about, well, if I do this, what if I do this? What if I do 3 sets? And that adds up to more weight. But really, if you did those 6 reps, you'd get stronger.
Interesting.
But in your head, you remember how much doing 5 sucked. And so you don't want to load that weight on and do it, because this is going to suck a little bit more. And people will come up with the craziest ideas to get out of it. And eventually they come full circle where they're back to the basics, and it's still just, okay, I need to do something hard.
Yeah.
It's only more complicated because when you have, for CrossFit at least, when you have so many disciplines that you're training and you have to balance those out, then it becomes more difficult. Or when the fatigue starts being more systemic. So like if you do a bench press, the first year that I bench pressed, like systemically, I'm not tired. Like I'm not going to finish a bench press workout and need a nap. Yeah. Or I'm not going to finish a bench press workout and other body parts are worn out.
Yeah.
But then you start having to balance some systemic fatigue. So a heavy bench press, like mentally, I'm going to be tired after that workout, man. Just because the weights are heavier, it's more demanding, and you start to have to play with that a little bit and figure it out. But it's always going to return back to I'm going to have to continue to do something hard. But I wouldn't say the positive aspect, but you could call it the positive side of it is you should have also gotten stronger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in an objective sense, that workout is harder than it was, but also you're strong. So really it should only be as difficult.
So what I like is that I think your approach, and I know you'll share a little bit more about it, but that you're about like simplifying it. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate it, including like nutrition too. That's what I'm guessing, because I know you had talked a little bit about, or I'd heard you talk about fixing small things in your lift, fixing small things and trying to do like everything, making one thing a little bit different. So I think your approach seems very like just simplify it.
Yeah, that's where the whole premise of the 50-to-1 method comes from.
Yeah.
Is I didn't have a way to articulate it, but I forgot which book it is from Nassim Taleb, but he breaks down the Pareto principle, the whole notion that 80% of your results are from 20% of what you do. But then he takes two derivatives of it. So he says, well, if you apply that same concept to the 20% of the work that you do, you're left with the 64-to-4. And if you apply that same concept again to that 4%, you're down to the 50-to-1. So if you believe in 80-20, then by necessity, you have to believe in 50-to-1. And I think a lot of workouts go that same way. So in an hour workout, you're probably talking 30 seconds. And you can give it a range, 30 seconds to a minute. There's in a typical hour-long workout, you probably have 30 seconds to a minute. That's half the results you're going to get from that. And so from the strength side, that right there is, your last reps of your toughest sets. On the conditioning side, that's that minute in there, somewhere around the 75% mark. So if you have a 10-minute AMRAP, let's say,
yeah,
somewhere minute 6 to 7 or minute 7 to 8, that's the minute that's going to separate it. Because the first 5 minutes, you haven't gotten that tired yet. Your last minute, even though physically it's demanding, it's your last minute. The finish line is right there. So even though your body is at its most fatigued, mentally, I know the finish line is right there. I can make it. Like so that last minute, you get this surge of energy. I'm like, oh man, I'm almost there.
Only 1 minute.
But somewhere in there, like between minute 6 and 7 or between minute 7 and 8, like especially beginning like at minute 6, that's where you're like, man, this really sucks. I'm tired. I still got a bit of stuff to do. Oh. It's that minute in there where all the results are going to come from.
Yeah. I love it.
And if before the workout you can identify that, the whole reason I'm here today is to do that right there. Then one, you allocate your effort there. And so the effort goes towards the things that are going to make you better.
Yeah.
And two, I think it becomes way easier to do. I think in an hour workout, people will hype it up like they're doing all this stuff for an hour. Which they'll feel good about that workout, but it makes the next workout way more difficult. Because when you start thinking about the next work, you're dreading this hour-long sufferfest when you might have 5 minutes that are hard and then 1 minute that really sucks. But when you look at that, you can get that done. Like, oh, I really only have 6 minutes. That's going to suck. 5 of it, it'll suck. And then 1 minute's going to be awful. Like, you can go in and get that workout done. But if in your head you're thinking that all the time is of equal importance, then you're not going to go do this hour-long sufferfest at the gym. And that kind of hype of what people do in their workout ruins their consistency going forward. because now it's all, you start dreading it. You start worrying.
That's
So,
really
for instance, that Isabel workout,
interesting.
you know, the 20 minutes, I broke it down to 2 minutes. So a heavy snatch like that takes about 4 seconds, and there's 30 reps. So there's only really 2 minutes of work in there. The other 18 minutes is resting, maybe a quick adjustment to tighten the clips, sitting down, getting ready for the lift. But you're only actually performing for 2 minutes. So to break those 20 minutes down and say, okay, I'm only actually doing stuff for 2 minutes, now that sounds like you can do it. And if you go a little bit further and say, well, it's not the first part of the snatch that's hard. It's not the last part. It's the stuff in the middle. And then,
Makes a lot of sense.
so in those 4 seconds, it's not even all 4 seconds aren't created equal. That's not that heavy of a deadlift. And comparatively, it's not that heavy of an overhead squat. But all that stuff in the middle is.
Yeah. Is that
So
what
if you,
your members understand too, and the people that you coach? Just trying to get them to
Yeah.
understand.
so that 20-minute workout, I break down to really about a minute of really hard stuff. And so you're tricking yourself into making it sound a lot easier than it really is.
Yeah.
Because I can go do a minute of total misery. But if I'm telling myself, hey, this is going to suck for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not much less likely to get that done.
I
And
wish
we try to get our members into that same mindset of when you're warming up, the goal is to warm up. You're not trying to be the warm-up champion.
Yeah.
You're just getting ready for the other stuff. And that's the same thing when they're doing their warm-up sets or they're doing skill work.
Yeah.
The point of the skill work is to develop skill. We're not here trying to set PRs for distance or PRs for stuff.
Exactly.
You're trying to refine technique. Then in the workouts, we're trying to get them to comprehend, that first half of the workout you're not supposed to be miserable. Like if it's a 10-minute workout, those first 2 or 3 minutes are not supposed to be 100% effort. That's no longer a 10-minute workout. That was a 3-minute workout. And then 7 minutes of, a cool down because you're moving so slow. That's not a 10-minute workout. And it helps them allocate the effort better and makes them more consistent instead of, oh man, I had the greatest workout of all time at the gym. We just started sweating and killed us for an hour. That's not that big of a deal, but down the road it becomes a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, so I could see how you could build a consistency, especially with those that it sounds like there's more people that have, all different background, shapes, sizes that are doing CrossFit now, where that it seems so intimidating, right? It's always been intimidating and it's not anymore because if you simplify it like that, I guess you want people coming back on a daily basis, destroying themselves and saying, I can't come back for 2 weeks.
So our youngest member is 3 and our oldest member is 79.
Wait, 3? Is it your child?
No, we have a gymnastics or a tumbling course. They start at 3, and then we have our CrossFit Kids starts at 4.
Oh my gosh.
And for those kids, nature's going to make them. We don't really have to do anything. But when they come here, the expectation is, okay, every single time they're going to be a little bit.
I love
So
that.
that is really easy for them to understand. Our athletes, as they get older, they can be better than where they're current. But we have our 79-year-old. It took her about 3 months to get her to sign up. And I think she had at the time 4 family members that came to the gym and 1 that used to come to the gym. So her daughter and son both come to the gym.
I love
And
that.
then they're daughter and son both came to the gym. So she had 2 kids and 2 grandkids at the gym.
It's so awesome.
And part of what got her to join was showing her the day one workouts that we don't even lift weights on day one. Our day one workout is it's running, it's air squat, sit-ups, and push-ups.
Okay. Nice.
And getting that idea into her head that the intensity is relative. And so when we start off, we're assessing where she's currently.
Yeah.
Her only goal is to beat them.
I love that.
And so if someone's starting off with no experience or no exercise, that's not that hard. If you were doing nothing, then you come in, any workout is harder than what you were. And by the time it starts getting hard, you've already been doing it for a long time. So you're not going to quit.
That's true.
But
right. It's true.
her understanding that, and even her first workouts, that workout that she did is harder than the one that I do. Like, her workout is beyond what she's used to. That one is less than what I'm used to. So if you're just looking at the weights, you're looking at the numbers and the amount of work that was performed.
Yeah.
Yes, objectively, that's many times harder. But subjectively, that workout she did was harder than the one that I did. So we both need to do the same things.
Yeah.
It's just she can go beyond her capacity to a greater extent and more frequently than I can, because where she's starting is she hasn't been doing squats for years.
Yeah. Exactly.
And for her, I think within 6 sessions, we needed a box for her air squat on day 1. I think on day 7 or so, she came into the gym. It's 7 a.m. or so, and she looks at me and says, "Hey, check this out." So she comes in and does one solid air squat.
Yes.
Feet are flat, everything in alignment, one really good air squat. And she was pumped about it.
I love it.
And that doesn't seem like a ton of work,
Yeah.
but compared to where she was at, she's been going beyond her capacity the whole time. And that process is just going to continue forever. She's gotten to a good level of fitness now, where we set people up like that, where we want them to hijack their reward system. So you'll see a lot of people that argue delayed gratification and all that. But we try to reframe it to take advantage of it, where it's almost like a game for people.
In what way?
And if you're going into the workout, and if your measurement of the workout is how much it sucked, like it always sucks the most at first. Like your first couple weeks at the gym, that's always the worst. That's when you're going to be the most sore, the most.
Totally.
And so you're only going to enjoy your fitness less over time. But if you make it objective and say, I just want you to do more work than you did before, that process can continue for quite a bit. And when you're going into the gym expecting that you're going to hit a PR, which someone who's been training for less than 3 months or so, they should absolutely expect, I'm going to go in there and be better than I was last time.
Yeah.
They are getting that immediate reward from each one of these workouts. So they come in, try hard, they see that reward up, and then they can slowly build that skill of delayed gratification, because it's going to go from every workout to every week.
Yeah.
Eventually from every week to every other week. And then when people get really advanced, then they might be working for a month to hit a PR. Like they're just happy to hit a PR once a month.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're taking people that need that constant reward and building that skill over time. And when they've been doing it for 2 years, those character traits don't just stay within the gym. They start applying them elsewhere, where, man, I worked really hard for this whole month just to hit this little 5-second PR. Now, when they do other tasks outside the gym, they have that ability to work for an extended period of time without that reward and be able to delay and push things off for a bigger reward in the future.
1000%. That's actually what I'd love for you to elaborate a bit on. I know you were on the panel with Dr. Nick, who was my nutritionist for like over a year, and you guys are big on like mindset and how you approach different things. And one of him and I had a conversation about like success in work and all other aspects of your life literally comes from, at least in my opinion, the foundation, the pillars of like health and wealth and mindset and mental health and all that. How do you do that yourself, and how do you kind of incorporate that into your training methodology or just even at work? Like, how's that? Why do you see that as important? Because I think different perspectives are so important, and it's clearly something you're passionate about.
Well, yeah, I use that pillar idea of health, wealth, and mindset, and I put health first for a reason. And that's because, well, without the health, you don't exist. So you can take a simpler approach and just say, well, obviously it has to be first, but not just alive or not, but what is the quality of life that you can live because of it? And I explain it as, let's say you take someone's personal balance sheet, you list out every single thing that they own, and you should put health on there. And if you put health, there's different terms for it in economics. You can take kind of like a life insurance approach and just say, okay, how much money does this person earn? How many years do they have left that they could work? You could take an approach like that. And when you start to lack health, you're going to see that, one, those years go down. You're going to see that your ability to earn goes down because you're sick. You're not able to produce as much, and that shifts the focus. So anytime someone's making a decision of whether they're going to trade off their health for some kind of monetary, you can understand it really quick. That monetary gain does not offset what you're going to lose because of your. So if that's going to take 1 year off your ability to work, well, are you getting compensated 1 full year worth? Usually the answer is no. You're gonna trade $20,000 for $100,000 reduction of health, and that's a poor trade. And when someone gets older, they start you look at that balance sheet. They'll trade any of those things on that balance sheet to be able to increase health. So it doesn't matter what it is, boat, car, vacation house, all the way down to their primary house. They'll sell off that primary house and go live in a studio apartment if it meant an increase in how long they live, quality of life that they're living. They'll get rid of all of it. Yeah. But it's hard for people when they're younger to see that up front. It's hard for them to understand those trade-offs.
100%.
And so that's why I put health as number one. And I put wealth as 2 because if you're in great health, you have to have a certain minimum amount of money because you need a roof over your head, you need food, you need clothing. There's just a minimum that you have to have. And then beyond that minimum, it's not that important. And then we get to the mindset portion. Mm-hmm. And that's there because no matter how good someone's health is or no matter how much money they have, if they have a bad attitude, they can't enjoy anything. And there's no level of fitness, there's no health status, there's no amount of money that's ever going to correct the mindset portion. But the other 2 do come first. If you're not in good health, you're in debt and struggling to pay bills, a positive attitude's not going to fix those things. They might help you take actions that'll fix it.
Yeah.
But no amount of positive thinking is going to stop the IRS from collecting or not get you kicked out of the house or change what's going to happen to your body because of some chronic disease.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, that's why I think the mindset portion needs to be tied into this,
Mm-hmm.
because they all support one another.
1000%.
The greater someone's health status is, they're going to earn more money, and they're going to work for longer. So the wealth goes in. And the more health and wealth, it doesn't mean they're going to have a good mindset, but they have a good foundation to think of things well. It's a lot less stressful. We noticed this 4 years ago, that the better health someone had, the more money they had saved,
Yeah.
the less stress they were enduring.
Yeah.
But without those two, it was a lot more stressful.
Yeah. And all the like mental health and addiction issues and everything that happened as a resort. And I mean, I don't even know. I know for myself, like literally just being in the like working out at home for 2 hours a day during the pandemic just to make sure I didn't lose my mind, right? They're all so tied together. What do you say to your members or potential members or anyone, even in your like me and like my friend circle, right, where they say I don't have enough time because of my kids, my husband, my wife, like you're married and have a child and own a gym and have you have so much going on. But what do you typically break it down like that for people when they're saying, I just don't have time? Do you break down the time for them?
No, I try to get them to shift their perspective on it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to tell them that they're not busy. I'm not gonna reject what they're saying.
Sure.
Do like a whole schedule audit. What I try to get them to understand is that if they work out, that the time that they spend working out, they're going to get more of whatever the thing is that they care about. So for them to take 4 hours out of the week, they are going to have less time with their kids. They are going to have less time. They are going to have less time for everything else. But the time they do have is going to be far.
Yeah.
So if you lose in terms of their waking hours, and you can add in the extra shower they have to take, you can add in the time they got to go to the gym, extra laundry, add all of it up, and say you are going to have 5% less time for all those other things. But what you do with the remaining 95% is going to be far greater than what you're doing right now. So there is going to be some upfront initially, there is going to be something that you have to give up. And I don't know what it is. That's on them to decide what is the thing that is least valuable to me that I'm willing to give up. In order for 3 months from now, you're going to get so much more out of the 95% of the time that you have currently that you're spending on those things, that's where your focus should be. Because usually they think of it as a zero-sum game. I have X amount of time. If I take 5 hours a week from these things, I'm losing all these other things that I care more about than my fitness.
Yeah.
And so we want them to understand that time that they spend on the fitness helps them get more out of it.
Yeah. That's so true.
It doesn't take very much. So if right now someone comes in, they run a 10-minute mile. If we bring them down to a 7:30 mile, well, do you think you get 10% more done during the day? Because I think you get 20-30% more done during the day.
So true.
So if you can take 5% of your time and devote that to the gym, and then you get 20% more out of the other 95% of how you're spending your time right now, you're far better off in total. This isn't a zero sum. This is additive. This is going to get more out of it.
I love that. I think for you, especially as a coach, having to be non-judgmental and just say, hey, you have to take something out of your day. But I know for me, my friends, people from CrossFit, 100%, we're more productive at work. We can manage our time more effectively. We're less burned out. You're less stressed. There's so many other positives, but it goes back to your mindset, right? Reframing the way you think about things, which is hard.
In the middle of the day, I'll do a walk, or if I don't really believe in rest days, but if it's kind of a rest day, I'll go do an easy 5K and something that's, my heart rate's like 130.
Yeah.
Not sweating and miserable, just a decent pace. Which altogether, like getting the rower out and everything, it's going to take me 25 minutes. But I get so much more done after that. Beforehand, I'm not getting anything done.
Yeah.
My brain is just turned off. I can't do anything. I can't concentrate. And what I get done after that is far, far greater than if I had those extra 25 minutes to just sit there and slow. That concept there is hard for people to, it's hard for them to wrap their head around at first. It's not zero sum. There are certain things that you do that is going to help you get more out of the rest of it.
Yeah. And even if a lot of, I think what you're talking about too is doing the simpler things and looking at it in a simpler fashion. And I have to say, it's obviously not just your fitness level and the amount the volume of work that you do, but also like your nutrition, right? And like what you're feeding and nourishing your body with. I mean, I have a photo that I shared with other people of the photos that you took of your fridge, like keeping it simple so you don't have a lot of options, and reducing decision fatigue, which I think a lot of people are like, what's the healthiest thing? What do I need to do? How do you do that when it comes to even just nutrition, or what suggestions do you have for people to be healthier in the nutrition aspect? Because I think it's a little bit different than a lot of others.
Economics had this problem where all of their models, when it didn't match real world data, there's certain assumptions that you make in most economic models which don't end up being true. But you need to understand how it should work first. And some of those are that people are perfectly rational, which we know they're not. They have all information and they can process all information, which they don't have it, and they can't process it if they did. And so they injected psychology into it to come up with a new field of behavioral economics, which I think needs to be done for fitness, well, for the exercise and the nutrition, because we often see the exercise just in this little vacuum as if nothing makes a difference. And we do the same thing in nutrition, where, yes, if you could study someone and see everything that they do for weeks on end, then we can just have a conversation about what foods and how much and all of those things. But that's not the case when someone leaves the lab, to measure, going to a family reunion and their favorite dessert that their grandma makes is there, and they crush 2 bowls of it. So that psychology aspect needs to be put into exercise and nutrition. So as an example for the exercise, if someone's riding a workout and they put a 10-minute AMRAP and they put a 10-minute EMOM, your score should be higher for the AMRAP. It's literally in the name, as many rounds as possible. But if it's a 10-minute EMOM, they work out harder. They have changed, that push for action onto the clock. Clock beeps, I do this one. Clock beeps, I do this one.
Yeah.
But if you ride a 10-minute AMRAP, they'll come back and they only got 9 rounds. And so how's that possible? This is as many rounds as you can. We defined the amount of work and supposedly limited you to just this. Well, it's a difference in just how the mind works.
Yeah.
An AMRAP is as many rounds as I feel like doing. An EMOM is either pass or I fail. And so they did more work with an EMOM, even though it sounds easier, even though it technically should be easier. The EMOM got more work done than the exact same workout written as a 10-minute AMRAP.
That's such a great analogy.
That's something that when people argue over exercise, they have no way to explain that type of stuff. And coaches get upset by saying, well, I've told them do as many as they can. But if you're really skilled at it, you're going to write that as an EMOM with something that the athlete believes they could hold on to each minute. And they got way more work.
I love
And
that.
so the same stuff happens in nutrition, where we argue all day long about which foods and what amounts and timing, when that's not most people's problem. They're not using the knowledge they already have. And so if you're not putting into knowledge, if you're not putting into use the knowledge you have, more knowledge isn't going to help.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a knowledge. And there's a really popular study about the number of decisions people make about food each day. The most important part of the whole study never gets talked about. And that's where they take how many decisions people make and they break it down by BMI. So they show how many decisions people make with a BMI under 25, decisions of people with a BMI between 25 and 30, and then over 30. And so they'll use different pieces of the study, and it's been cited tons and tons of time. But there's a table in there, and it shows people with a BMI over 30 are making almost 50% more decisions per day than people with a BMI under 25. And the takeaway from that should be, well, more decisions is worse results. That this person with a BMI over 30, they have to say no more often. They have to say no at work to donuts that someone brings. They have to say no if they're in a school setting where they have vending machines and all constant access or influence. That's advertising on the radio, it's advertising on social media, it's the things they drive by on their way to work. They have to make nearly 50% more decisions. So you could easily have somebody with a BMI over 30 with more discipline than someone with a BMI under 25. But the person with the BMI under 25, they don't have that temptation. They're not having to say no nearly as often as someone in a different environment.
Yeah.
And it's real easy with kids to recognize, like, hey, these two kids in different environments are going to have different outcomes. If you took the exact same one and put them somewhere else, they would get different results because of the environment. And then somewhere along the way, we go from this little kid is responsible for very little of what they do to this person is 100% responsible when they get older, which at the end of the day, they are responsible, but they can also change the environment to make it way easier. So instead of, oh, I just need more discipline, I need to work harder, I need to be more disciplined. If you could drop the number of decisions down so you don't need to be disciplined, all of this would be way easier. So on average, if that person with a BMI under 25 is making 200 decisions, and then someone with a BMI over 30 is making 300 decisions, if we can get your 300 decisions down to 200, your results are going to be better. And if we can get you all the way down to 100 decisions, this is going to be really easy. You don't need any discipline. You don't need to worry about all that stuff. You just go with the flow. The behavior that you want to do is what's considered normal. It's the easiest option. And you have these little barriers to do things you don't want to do. So we have a 7-step process we take people through. And very little of it is what to eat or how much to eat. A lot of it is, how do we make an environment that makes it easy to follow whatever diet you're doing? And the first step is the accountability portion, which is you ultimately you are responsible. But again, you have the power to change it.
Yeah.
Step 2 is to clean the house out. And this is by far the most important step.
I've done that a bunch of times.
It's the one that we get the most pushback on. We explain it as if you have certain cues. So if you know that that is in the cupboard, you don't forget that it's on the top shelf. But now every time you look at the kitchen, whether it's conscious or not, every time you look at the kitchen, you're reminded your favorite item's right there.
And knock it off. Yeah.
And so you're not going to be successful if it's in the house. And that doesn't mean you never have it. That means if you want ice cream, you have to go to the ice cream shop, you get whatever you want, and then you just move on.
Yeah.
And when we've walked people through it, I said, whatever you get at the ice cream shop, one, you're probably not going to go. At the end of the day, your desire to sit on the couch is going to be more than your desire for ice cream. And so even though it's not going to take you very long to go get, you're just not going to do it. When you do go get it, whatever you get there is going to be better than what you would have ate out. If you go with someone else, or you go by yourself, or there's other people in the ice cream shop, you're going to keep it a lot more reasonable.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not gonna go to the freezer and get a quart and a half and start eating it. Even if you get the worst item on the menu, it's still probably better than what you would have at home. Because at home you're gonna sit in front of the TV, you're gonna do something else, you're gonna scroll TikTok or something, and by the time you're done, it's worse than what you would have got.
That's true.
So those simple things like that, of cleaning the house. So there's little friction in order to eat well, because that's what you have in the house.
Yeah.
The easiest thing for me to do is to eat what's there and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little barrier to do stuff you don't want to do, which means you don't do it nearly as often. And then even when you do it, it's not nearly as catastrophic as you would at home. So me and my wife, there's been numerous times in the years, we'll eat a whole container of ice cream at home, but we would never do that at an ice cream shop. Like we'll both get a bowl and then we'll come back for seconds, but we would never do that in public.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get like 2 large items and then finish it and come back and order a second.
Meanwhile, no one would judge either one of you guys. You both look great. No one would ever judge. They'd be like, that's what you do?
Yeah, and that's those kind of second and third order effects.
Yeah.
People usually don't see. They just think, oh, food's out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, that has these impacts down the road.
Yeah.
Which is not when you look at a year from now, if you were to clean the house today, a year from now, that's going to be a huge difference.
Totally. 100%.
It won't be a huge difference a month from now, but all those extra days that you're not doing what you want to do and you're doing something you don't want to do, they start adding up over the course of a year.
Yeah.
And then the other steps are, step 3 is plan, and a lot of that is just life. When you wake up, when you go to bed. 4 is shop, which a lot of people don't know how to shop.
Do you guys help them with that?
Yeah, we'll actually have them write a shopping list. And so
Nice.
I used to work I took a break from college. I worked as a mealman for a year.
Nice.
And so you put your packages in delivery order.
Yep.
And so I'll write the shopping list in order of the store.
That's genius.
So
Yeah.
when you show up, like if we go to Costco, I write my list as fruit first, vegetables, meat, frozen, and then all of the dry goods.
Yeah.
And so as you're looking at that list, you just go one after the other.
That's right.
Versus backtracking, looking for this, looking for that.
Reducing
The store is designed with those end caps and everything else, so that every time you stop and you start looking around, you see them.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not putting the chicken breast on the end.
No.
That's going to be dead center, because the people who buy it we'll put a little extra work to find it.
Yeah.
And then it's the prep step. That's I believe 5, and that one is that's where everyone thinks is all the hard work, and it's not a hard. You could always outsource them. You can buy your meals.
That's true.
And then 6 is by far the hardest, which is eat. And people laugh their ass off when we say that's one of the steps. It's by far the hardest one, because you will leave that food in the fridge in the office and then go out with your coworkers at lunch. I said, that is and people do it all the time. We're like, oh, well, that's not really going to go bad. So I'll leave that for tomorrow and we'll go out today. And then seven's evaluate, which is we look at where, as we go through this again, where should the focus? Step 7, at least the first time people go through it, almost every time it's back to step 2, which is clean. I was hungry at 9:30. This was there in the cupboard, so I went and got it. That's almost always where people.
I'm assuming you probably have some clients too that, like, now with, depending on where they live, you have Uber Eats and DoorDash and all that stuff too, which unfortunately makes things convenient for people to get things delivered quickly, Instacart, all that stuff. But
yeah, and that's why it at least is slow enough that you're not you have to wait.
Yeah.
It at least makes it's just inconvenient enough and expensive enough.
That's true.
That people aren't going to do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is it is something that we bring up, because when we talk about cleaning the house out, we'll tell them, whatever you want, you could Uber Eats. It's not like you're restricting yourself.
Right.
You're just making it a little harder for you to grab it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, there's lots of people who they never actually eat a meal.
What do you mean?
They'll maybe have one meal a day. Everything else will just be a series of snacks. Like they're not really eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I think what matters the most is what you eat over the course of 24 hours. Most of those, that's going to be the single most important thing. Is the number of calories, how those calories break down into the different macronutrients. Then it'll be the actual quality of the food, and the timing matters. It just doesn't matter to the extent that it doesn't matter if you're not getting the more fundamental parts of it. So there's no timing trick that's gonna make up for eating 1,000 calories over your maintenance.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the macronutrients. Like there's nothing that's gonna make up for 80% of your calories coming from sugar or even the butter coffee.
Yeah.
I remember when it was like a fad to put 1,000 calories of butter in your coffee in the morning. So that's really where we want in the course of 24 hours, someone to have the correct amount of calories, the correct macronutrients. And only if those two things are done, then we'll start worrying a little bit more about the quality of the food to make sure all the micronutrients are there and the timing of it. But if it's 3 meals or it's 5 meals, it's not going to make that big of a difference. And there's some context to that. For an athlete, this is probably more applicable for the teenagers that get sucked into the supplement advertising. But when you finish your workout, if you're only working out once a day, they'll pull up a study where they measure their performance 4 hours. And we'll say, yeah, but you're not working out 4 hours later. You're working out 23 hours. Yeah. You care about how you've recovered 23 hours from now, not how recovered you are 4 hours.
Yeah.
So adding this protein shake in there, digest easily, can get into the bloodstream quickly. That matters on competition day, or it matters when you're working out multiple times a day. But when you got 23 hours to digest that food and be recovered for tomorrow, those certain things become less important.
That makes sense. I love that you simplify that too, right? Because there's so much noise out there, and how many times it's like, oh, you're gonna break down muscle if you don't have protein in this time frame, and it's like you can't even get to the basics of proper nutrition. Don't be worrying about whether something's organic if you're still eating ice cream and a pint of it every night, right? Like that makes a lot of sense. Just start simple and not expecting. I think we all are expecting quick results. I think that's also psychologically, right? You probably have a lot of
Yeah, and
people
I
that,
think I think a lot of the nutrition advice, if you kind of go back to that study showing the number of decisions people, most nutrition advice is think about this, consider this, more stuff to think about, but we know that more decisions lead to worse outcomes.
yeah,
And so a lot of that needs to be whittled down to where it's very easy to decide. And everyone that I personally know who they're in really good shape without tracking their food, they don't put it on a food scale, but they have some very basic heuristics of what they should eat per meal. They don't have a lot of variety,
right.
and they keep it really simple. So I know someone, their breakfast it's almost always eggs, and they'll have some kind of fruit. And when they say they don't eat the same thing every day, what they really mean is, well, one day it's strawberries, the next day it's blueberries, the next day it's a banana.
Yeah.
And so if you're
So,
specific about it, then, well, no, they're eating different stuff every day. If you're kind of more general, oh, well, it's always fruit and it's always about this much. And that'll be the same thing with the eggs they have. Like, oh, one day they're scrambled, one day they're poached, one day they're this. Yeah, but it's almost always the same things in relatively the same amounts. And that makes it simple for them. It's easy to follow. It's easy to make adjustments because they can make some simple adjustments if they want their weight to go up or down.
yeah.
But yeah, they don't and weighing it out, but they are tracking. It's just a looser version of tracking. And if we can get people at first into that kind of basic framework where their floor is really high, where they're eating X number of meals these times, they're convenient, they're not tempted by things they don't want to eat. It's easy to eat the things that are good for them. Their success is going to be much greater when we look out into the future. Then we were really regimented, we were dialed in for 6 months, and then we went back to all the stuff we used to do.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Keeping it like simple, making sure the stuff is, the food is at least like nutrient dense, right? I know at least for myself, even anytime I've had like protein bars or whatever, I get more cravings versus just having nutrient dense fruit, like eggs, meat, sticking to the basics makes it a lot easier for everybody. I think that's you starting simple. I'm thinking all the concepts that are coming out of this conversation is like just keep it simple. I think we all try to overcomplicate everything. And again, I think there's just so much noise out there. And Graciano, a question for you is I would just want to ask you, doing what you do for work at the box, like advice that you would give to people that just whatever success means to them, like what advice do you give to the words of wisdom, whether it's health, whether it's nutrition, whether it's business? And I also know I run into a lot of people that struggle with wanting to take a leap of faith and do something different in their life to make them happy and have a better mindset, and they're too afraid to do that. What advice would you give them based on what you've done in your lifetime? And the other question was, I just want to know, what was a big challenge that you had, whether it's a fitness challenge or just a life challenge, and how did you overcome it? I think that's something that's just always interesting to me because everyone has something and not everyone always knows it.
Yeah, I would recommend people have some kind of tangible metric that they can evaluate their efforts.
that.
And this is a really big problem. We've had this conversation with quite a few teachers. So when we do goal reviews, we'll have this conversation with teachers. It's applicable to people that just about anybody who works in an office, especially if they're in an office and on a team, is to give themselves some kind of tangible metric that matters to them that they can. And if they're involved in fitness, this is what CrossFit did 20 years ago. Was they put up a stopwatch and then they defined this is what fitness is. And that was it. You add up your abilities through all these different domains and there's your level of fitness. And so when people think of either success or doing a good job, they don't have a metric in which they can evaluate. And that completely destroys their motivation because they're going to do all this work without being able to step back and look at the amount of work they did. So if you're in construction, you complete a job, and then anyone who's grown up in that world, every time you pass by a job, their dad or their uncle or someone else, hey, you see that right there? I built that. They get to look at it. And we're in a farming community, so every year you can see the work that got done. From planting to harvesting, at the end of the day, you can look at it and say, I did this work here. And that gives people more motivation to get more done when you get to step back and look at it.
Yeah.
But if you're in HR, you normally don't have a metric that you can look at. There'll be some. So the conversations like we've had with teachers is, they're going to get graded on the percentage of kids that are reading level with the standardized testing at level for me. But a lot of them don't care about it and recognize, hey, this is not a good test of the teacher. And so they lose their passion for teaching pretty quickly. I'm just showing up to work, get my paycheck, keep my bosses happy, and after having to do all this stuff that I don't care about, then I'm gonna do what I really want to do, which is help set these kids up for future success.
Yeah.
So if you have a specific metric, you're gonna notice that you work a lot. The one that we use for a gym is an economic term called quality adjusted life years. So we're not just looking at how many years someone lives, the extension of their life. We're also looking at the quality of those years. And so when you try to explain to someone you're going to live another 10 years, in their head they're thinking, well, I don't really care about those years 75 to 85. They've already have it down of like, well, yeah, who cares about that? I'm not going to give up all the fun and enjoyment I have now. So I have another 10 years when I'm old and can't do anything. And so the concept of quality adjusted life years is, if you're looking at some intervention, you also have to make an adjustment for how good those years are that they otherwise still would have. If we have someone that comes in at the gym at 40 and is in a relatively poor health status, we're not just looking at they started doing CrossFit and now instead of living to 70, they're going to live to 80. We're looking at what were those years between age 40 and 70. And it's a different way to look at it. So if the kind of the simplified way of looking at it is, okay, they lived another 10 years. But in those 30 years, if they went from 50% health to 100% health, you can quantify that, say, okay, well, we had the equivalent of 15 years of life that we added between ages 40 to 70. Because at 40, they don't have the energy to keep up with their kids. They don't they get by at work, but they're not excelling. They're doing all of these things that they're just scraping by. And it's really the value of age 40 to 70 in a high health status that is the bulk of the value of exercise and nutrition, not the extension from being 70 years to 80 years.
So breaking it down for that.
For us, that's the metric that we use in terms of evaluating the gym. Now, in order to do that, you have to make money. If the gym's not making money, this thing's not going to exist. But I think there's a lot of gym owners, there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of people that are not motivated to a high degree by the money part of it. And so they don't prioritize it. But if they would reframe that to see, would more money help me accomplish this thing that I want to do? So if the end goal is I want to improve quality adjusted life years in our community, well, more money would help me do that. That means you can get a larger facility. That means you can hire more coaches. That means you need that resource to be able to increase the quality adjusted life years. But if we undercharge and then everyone that comes in to coach isn't getting paid, our equipment sucks, the building sucks, it's in a bad area, that's all going to make it more difficult to do. And so I would recommend picking that thing that you're striving for.
I love that.
For us, it's quality adjusted life years. We have a teacher. Her goal was to minimize the number of kids that are not at reading, not at grade level for reading, because that's her favorite topic. So she had, I know one year, it was last year, the class that she came in.
One of your members or one of in the community?
This is one of our members.
Yeah.
8 kids were not at grade level, and then at the end of the year, only 3 were not at grade level. Now, she's not going to get any special pat on the back for that, or she's not going to get any reward for that. But that's what's meaningful to her, is giving those kids the opportunity. So those 5 kids, her existence and her being a teacher made a big difference for those 5 kids. That was the value that she added.
I love that. That's another topic I've talked to a lot of folks on the podcast outside of it, just knowing really what your purpose is too. I think that's, she knows what her purpose is walking in. I think your purpose, and that's so important. Are you striving towards that every single day? Are you making a dent the way that you want to? Which sounds like she.
I don't think it's something that most people would ever think of. They'd be like, oh, well, I need to go to work. I need to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I need to do. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That really should be that was definitely my main priority, when I was 20.
Yeah.
Was I don't know what.
Just need to make a lot of money.
I don't want to be broke, and I don't want to live with a bunch of roommates and stuff and scrape by.
Exactly.
But then somewhere along the line, you find, and it might be something that happens to you, or it might just be something that naturally comes up. But this is something that for most people will take time to figure out.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Like you said, it's better to try to find that in your 20s and 30s or before. I mean, once you have other people, kids, married, like you have other people to consider now, so you have to really be thoughtful in your approach. But I think you can work together as a team. You can try to figure out what it is. But I guess if your job allows you the things to, the financial things to spend time with your family, and you're okay with sticking with it, it's okay too. So for you, just as a piece of inspiration, what would be one of the most challenging situations you faced in your life, and like what got you out of it? I feel like that's just something that everyone that's been successful in a role like yours has had that, and it's built resilience.
Well, the easiest way. See, for some reason, I don't like the idea of the challenge. I will say what got me into CrossFit was my sister died when I was 16,
Oh my gosh.
and she died of obesity. So she was 10 years older than I was. She was 26. I was 16, and I had the goal of helping people get healthier. I just didn't know how to do it. So I didn't know how I would do it. And then I joined a CrossFit gym. I was 22, and until that point, I had a bunch of friends that would work out with me, and none of them would last. And I wasn't gonna hunt them down. I wasn't gonna hunt them down and chase them. I got one friend that I know from then that still works out. So when we're in town, we'll work out together.
That's awesome.
But
Great.
I knew that what I did, because when I first joined a CrossFit gym, I was competing in strongman. That what I did is not for everybody. This is not how most people should train. This is not the mindset they should have. But I didn't know how I would help other people. And so I came to a CrossFit gym, and at the time it had been open for a little less than a year and a half. And there were already people that had lost significant amounts of weight, that had gotten much healthier, and had succeeded up until that point. They joined early when the gym was on, or when the gym first opened. And in a year, they're down 30, 40 pounds. Their blood pressure has plummeted. Their cholesterol numbers are better. Their A1C is better. And so seeing the people with the results and meeting them in person, I knew, okay, this is far better than any other program. You don't see results like this anywhere else, in particular on the health aspect of it. And then I signed up for the level 1. And while getting ready for the level 1, that's where I started reading the CrossFit Journal, all the way back to the very, very first articles, and getting an understanding of what CrossFit really is. Because I only knew it from, what you see on the internet.
Yeah.
That would be the worst parts of CrossFit shared by people who don't like CrossFit. So you have a very, very narrow view of what the whole thing is. And I finished, after I got the level 1 is when I started coaching right away. And that's what has kept me continuing in CrossFit for 10 and a half years now.
I love that.
Is that I explain it like, if you're looking at your life as a book, any of these moments are just chapters.
Yeah.
And you're continuing to write those other chapters. And so you could look at certain challenges or adversity as a negative thing. But almost everybody throughout history, you don't get those positive impacts without some of the negatives.
It's true.
It's just, it never happens. You look at all the top athletes, they had something before, they didn't just start kicking ass from the time they were born all the way through life. There's almost always something, there's a flip side to it.
That's so true.
For me, when I decide how am I going to make the most of this situation, it's me coaching people and me helping people get healthier.
Yeah. That's super inspiring. I mean, you're 100% right. That's also a mindset shift, right? I think from the outside, both you and I probably share that similar value of, you need to have the right mindset and look at adversity as a way to come out and be more resilient. Not everyone has that, but yeah, 100% right. All the athletes, how many times they fail, and just so many successful people, they've all failed so many times. But I love that you kind of made that a bit of your mission. And I think that's so inspiring too, because again, like you were saying with the journals, the articles about like the hate on CrossFit, and I hear that all the time, right? How many times people say like, "Oh, you do CrossFit and you don't, that's like bad for you," and I'm like, no, it's not right? Where it's so good for you in so many ways.
Yeah, the purpose, it was never really forged in elite fitness. In the very first foundational article, what is fitness? It was laying out the notion that fitness and health are a measurement of the same thing. I mean, um, that when you look at the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum, the only reason we are pursuing fitness is because it's highly correlated with health. And the mission was always to reverse and cure chronic disease. And that's what the majority of our members are here for. They're not here with aspirations to go to the games. Very few of them have aspirations to compete at all. They don't even really want to flex on their friends. Like, they don't even want to they don't even care about being the fittest person they know locally. They only care about the health side.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a misconception, right? I think that's just maybe the way things were looked at before. Because I know now it's like shifting so much, but yeah. Go in there and scale the workout. It's fine. Like, you're not competing today. It's not, you're here to get a good workout in. That's great. I know for the listeners, it's going to be very helpful to understand someone that's so involved in fitness and health, but also has a business and works full time and can balance all of that with, with a wife and a child and a home and all those things. So anything else?
Check out the wellness program we have listed on our website.
Okay, super. So there's a wellness program?
Yeah, we overlaid some objective marks along the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum.
Awesome.
And that's the process that we take people through when they come to the gym. Is step one, we assess. Then we build their plan out based off of that on-ramp and the data that we collect to give them some tangible metrics of where they should aim for in their fitness because of how it's going to correlate at the doctor's office. So if they want to achieve autonomy, they don't want to live with a daily medication, they want the fitness level to do whatever they want outside the gym, we break that down. This is what it looks like. This is the path and kind of the expected time frame to get you there.
Nice.
And then separate that distinction from health and then fitness or competition. So this is the level, and this is where the majority of our clients get to and are happy with and continue with. That is kind of the most bang for your buck in terms of your effort versus what it's going to do for you in the rest of your life. And then beyond that, that's the fun part of fitness. Like, that's you sign up for the charity races and do all the other stuff. But in terms of where should my mile time be to get my blood pressure in range? Where should my weightlifting be to get my bone density up? Where should my benchmarks be to get the A1C down? We have that listed on that wellness chart to give people a little bit more, a better understanding of how what they do in the gym is going to correlate to the rest of it.
That's really cool. I really love that. It's like everyone can connect with that. So I definitely will share that as well. And then you have to finish, because I forgot to ask you, I want to know your biggest lifts. What are the weights? Because I know
I
400 something strict press. I'm like, what?
I have not done any real one rep lifts for a long time.
Oh my God.
It's I think my biggest squat is 605 for 3.
Oh my God.
The biggest deadlift I've done is 615. And I haven't done a max deadlift for 10 years now. So clean and jerk is 440, and then snatch is 380.
Oh my God. That's insane. Do you work out at your own gym so people, if they want to drop by and they can come by and they lift with you, or you not take a class, you just do it on your own?
I'll do both. So I'll train on the off hours when no one else is working out, or these last couple months I started joining more classes.
Okay, that's cool.
If you're a strength athlete, the class is really just accessory work for time. So instead of a really boring accessory, you can just join a class where you're going to do a bunch of movements and you're going to move a little.
That's awesome.
I'll do some classes, and then I'll train in between classes when no one else is here.
Oh my, how much time a day about do you spend?
It's usually an hour. I'll probably train I probably train every day for about 1 hour.
Yeah.
And if it's more than an hour, it's not actually working out. It's taking my time to get set up and taking my sweet time afterwards to put everything away. But the actual training is not more than
Yeah. I think that's the intimidating part sometimes to people, that it can be in a shorter window if we're not on our phones in between resting too much and stuff, or just
one thing that I'll do is I'll actually go get all my weights out and get set up like an hour before, so that way when it's time to work out, I don't have that hump to get over.
Yeah.
So I'll get up and get everything ready, knowing I'm not going to work out yet, so that when I do work out, I don't procrastinate.
That's great. That's great. I feel like everything, there's just this theme of reduced decision fatigue, and everything that you'll get stronger, you'll get better, you'll get healthier.
Yeah, if I was smart about it, I would brand it as mindfulness.
Yeah.
But I use the more technical terms. Right?
That's great. Well, Graciano, thank you so much for spending the time. I'm so incredibly grateful. I know the listeners, I want to put it out a lot on LinkedIn, especially too, because I know that's a big, you're there too with your other clients, but just thank you so much. You're very, very methodical in the way that you explain things. It's easy for people to understand. It's easy for me to understand. I learned a lot, so I'm so grateful for it too.